Hi, my name is Kate Lehman, and this is my EDL 851 discussion board 8 over the evaluation process. Our school, USD 270, uses the McCrell evaluation process, and the evaluation process is based off of 5 standards. First of all, teachers demonstrating leadership. Second of all, teachers establishing a respectful environment for a diverse population of students. The third standard is that teachers know the content they teach. The fourth one is that teachers facilitate learning for their students. And the fifth one is that teachers reflect on their practices. The evaluation process has 5 different stages: a self-assessment, a pre-observation, an observation, a post-evaluation, and a reflection. The first thing teachers do in the process is a self-assessment, And on the self-assessment, you go through each of the 5 standards, and each of the 5 standards has 5 to 8 sub-standards, and you mark yourself either developing, proficient, accomplished, or distinguished. After that's done, you schedule a pre-observation with your administration, and you go into their office and you guys work together to figure out a goal for the year. And you can use this goal to go to professional development events and use it to get PDC points, which I think is kind of neat. As you go through the self-assessment, you talk about things in your classroom that how you demonstrate it and what you want to prove and things like that. Then you set up a pre-observation with your administrator, and that's when you go through like the lesson plan that you're going to do and what they're observing and all of that. And then the administrator comes in and does an actual observation in your classroom. And this is like most observations, they just come with their clipboard and sit there and they mark, are you developing, proficient, accomplished, or distinguished, and all of the different 5 standards and all the different, 10 sub-standards. And then after that, you have a post-evaluation. And during the post-evaluation, the administrator and the teacher go through the document, and they talk about, what the teacher scored and why they scored it and how to do better and the means and evidence of how it was demonstrated in the classroom. And then lastly is the reflection done by the teacher. And at this time, the teacher goes through and just says, here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like, here's what I'll do different. During the reflection, if the teacher thinks that they were evaluated inaccurately or something went wrong, teachers can file a bereavement. This has to be done within 2 weeks of the observation, and the observation can be rebutted, and then the teachers will document why they think the observation was unfair. After that, the administration and the teachers both look at the rebuttal and sign off on it. The evaluation isn't actually changed, but the notes are documented. With each of the 5 standards and each of the substandards of the 5 standards, you can attach artifacts to show why you're either proficient, distinguished, developing, or advanced. We don't have to, which is really, really nice because it takes a long time to do. A lot of other school districts do. If you feel like your evaluation was inaccurate, then you are required to attach the artifacts and say, here's my artifact, here's why I'm distinguished, and then, like I said, both the administrator and the teacher mark off on it together. If teachers feel like they were unfairly let go, if they're a member of NEA, oftentimes NEA will fight for you. In our district, we've only had one teacher that was let go in the 3 years I've been there, and it was kind of one of those things where they needed to let go and nobody really fought because it needed done. There used to be a statewide clause, I believe, that if teachers have taught for more than 3 years, they have to give it a legitimate reason why they were fired. But I think when tenure went away, that went away also. However, our district's NEA still states that if you have taught for more than 3 years, you have to be given a legitimate reason with legitimate documentation about why a teacher was fired. If you're not given this, the teacher cannot be fired. However, if you've taught less than 3 years, you're kind of out of luck. No reason has to be given. Teachers can just be fired just because. Legal cases. I chose to look at the 2015 David Welch Group versus a bunch of schools in California. With this case, a group of parents and teachers, and I believe it was 3 teachers and 2 parents, sued several districts in California over, the first thing, it was over tenure. And then it was because teachers were being fired based on student state assessment scores rather than through an evaluation process. So California used an evaluation process, I'm not sure which one. And even if a teacher scored outstanding on the process, they could still be fired if their students didn't score very good on the state assessments. And in 2015 is when this case took place. I guess there was over 60 teachers fired within these 15 districts. And it caused a major teacher shortage because no one would go teach in these districts because they were teaching low income low socioeconomic students, and then when the students didn't score well, rather than get the teachers more training, the districts just fired the teachers. And so the David Welsh group went to the court and just said, here's what's happening. And then they referred back to the Stoll case of 1971 and talked about the evaluation process and how the evaluation process for the teachers in California needed to change, and then that's how they needed to base whether or not teachers were let go. I attached the link of more information kind of to the little case. It was a really interesting case. I would recommend reading through it. As a future leader, I think it's super duper duper important to know your laws. Last year I took the special ed course, the special education law course, and I asked my superintendent for quite a bit of help with it because she was very, very good at it. And she showed me a notebook about this thick, and she said the first thing you do when you become an educator or an administrator, is come make a copy of this notebook and then learn it front to back, up and down and up, left to right, right to left, because it's your lifesaver. And it was literally a whole notebook over like 504 and IDEA and all of that stuff. And she said, I can't even tell you how many times I've just quoted the law out of this book, out of, frustrated parents that just need someone to know what's going on. And so, same thing with the code of conduct. KSDE has an educator code of conduct, and it lists expectations of teachers. Our current superintendent has one that's stapled to her bulletin board, and I know she refers to it daily. We don't have a ton of issues with our staff because we're in a smaller school, which is nice. Sorry. But I know that bigger schools often use the educator code of conduct when they're looking at how to follow the laws of making sure they have their teachers doing what they need to do. Our district also has a very, very in-depth handbook for both students and staff. It is referred to daily for students. I actually went on a trip to an MTSS conference in Wichita a couple weeks ago with both our principal and our superintendent, and the counselor was gone that day too, so one of the veteran teachers was in charge, and we got a phone call on the way home, and 2 kids had gotten in a fight at lunch, and I look over and both the principal and the superintendent both had whipped out their student handbooks. I was like, you guys carry those with you everywhere? They're like, oh yeah, you don't leave your office without this handbook. And it's a thick handbook. It's like that thick, single spaced, 100 pages over, if this happens, here's the consequence and here's why. And we have one for staff also. It's not quite as thick, but it talks about, the dress code for the staff, the expectations in the classroom, and what happens if you don't follow that. I think that's really good. You can't cover everything in a handbook, but our district sure tries to. We have a running Google Doc, and if anything happens that's not in the handbook, we type it in the Google Doc, and then the next year it gets added to it. And then before school starts, students have to sign off on it. But it's a good way for parents to kind of cover themselves, for administrators to kind of cover themselves when it comes to parents and them being mad about whatever's happening. They say, well, here's the handbook, you signed it, your student signed it, here's what they did, and here's what the consequence is. And so that works out really well for our district. Thanks.